In other words, to be a person of justice in your own personal life, on an interpersonal level, I think that Jesus also affirmed my cynicism about institutions by the fact that he came here as an individual and interacted with people as an individual. I mean, this is profound, right? Think about this. Jesus could have come down here, the Son of God, with the wealth of the universe, and set up an institution for the poor, an institution for the homeless, an institution for the abused mothers, an institution for the children that have no parents, I can't think of the word right now, the motherless, the fatherless, I can't, anyway, whatever that word is, I can't think of it. An institution for the political asylum seekers, and given each of those institutions $10 quadrillion, right? Funded them for all perpetuity, and then been like, snapped his fingers and be like, okay, I'm done here. I'm going back home to be with my Father, and my hot angel attendants, all right? Because you're going to try to tell me God isn't in on the sex business? God invented sex, okay? There's a guy on the internet, Dr. Schneebelen. It's a funny name, Schneebelen. I believe it's Schoenebel, I believe. E-N, sorry. Schoeben, Schneebelen, L-E-N, something like that. Anyway, he says, he claims to have read the Bible 30 times, 28, 34 times, somewhere in that range. And he says that angels have a weakness for women. Especially women with long hair. That's what he says. And he has scriptures to back it up. I don't know if it's true, but I'm intrigued by the concept. He says that the fallen angels were the watchers that God sent to the Garden of Eden to keep Adam and Eve out when they fell from grace, and that it was the watchers whose eyes fell upon the women, and they acquired a weakness for women. And it just goes on from there, and if I started talking about it, I'd be talking for another half an hour. If you're interested in that sermon/lecture that he gave on this particular subject, believe it or not, it goes from there to drinking blood, to the blood sacrifice, to vampirism, it just goes all over the place. This thing is amazing. This sermon is amazing. I highly recommend it. Dr. Schneebelen. You'll know him. You'll know if you got the right guy, because he's a little funny-looking guy with a long white beard and wears a yarmulke, because he's like a Messianic Jew type person. But he did it backwards. Most Messianic Jews are Jews who accept Christ. There's a whole bunch of Christians that are doing it backwards. They're like Christian, but they accept the Torah. So they anyway, I think they call themselves Messianic Jews, or they call themselves Jewish Christians or Christian Jews or something like that. Anyway, he's one of those guys. So, very smart guy, in my opinion. Very balanced, very objective, very well-informed, very good guy. Extraordinary Bible teacher, in my opinion. It's not to say I agree with everything he says, but to me, he's an extraordinary Bible teacher. Because he teaches the actual Bible. He doesn't teach this go-go yogurt version of the Bible where it's sweet and it's soft and it's gooey and it's just what everybody wants to hear. It's like go-gurt, not go-go yogurt. Go-gurt, actually. That cheap sugar-infused yogurt that parents give all their kids because they think yogurt's good for them, when in reality it's basically the equivalent of candy. But anyway, liquid candy, But so what was I talking about? I was talking about Schneebelen. Oh, angels having a weakness for women, God being the inventor of sex. I was talking about a lot of things. I started out talking about conspiracies, and somehow I got completely sidetracked onto some other things. And now I can't remember even what I was talking about at all. I apologize. So let me see if I can get myself back on track here. It might take a second. I was talking about the truck not having a good place to put my phone, or any place to put my phone for that matter. I was talking about John the Baptist being the harbinger for Jesus, repentance, purging evil from our lives. I've completely lost my train of thought. I apologize. It will come to me. That's the thing. It almost always does. Question is, how long will it take? Many digressions. I apologize for the digressions. So, I think I'll just start talking, and I think it will come to me if I start talking. So, purging the evil, repentance, institutional corruption, the Catholic Church descending into rampant pedophilia. It's not, there was one pope that said it was just America. No, it's not just, it's everything. It's the Vatican. It's, I mean, the Pope's right-hand man in Australia has been trafficking in little boys for the last 50 years. I mean, there's 150 individual cases that they know about. I mean, it goes right up to the top. But that's all the institutional stuff. So let me jump over real quick to the conspiracy stuff, and then I'll wrap it up because I'm getting tired and this is getting unbearably long, I'm sure. Basically, the reason the institutions are so corrupt, it's like that Hebrew saying, a fish thinks from the head down. Is that actually Hebrew saying? I don't know. I heard it was. A fish thinks from the head down. Basically, everything is a reflection of what is above it. Okay? If you have an organization, the organization is going to reflect the values of the people that lead it. Because look, when you're in charge, you're looking over your organization. You know, you have the power to hire and fire. You see something you don't like, you don't have to go on a campaign to clear it up. You just have to say, stop. You know, now, there are some institutions that are so big that you could get somebody in there. But in general, okay, I think that an institution is a reflection of the people that lead it. So the reason the institutions are so corrupt, and the reason the lies are so pervasive about the nature of the world, the real world, is because it's like I said, if you ask the question, it's a very provocative question, what's the real world like? You're going to have 100 people jumping in front of you, trying to explain to you what the real answer to that question is. It's the exact same thing. These institutions want to jump between us and the truth, because if they do that, they get the glory. If they don't do that, then they have to turn around and look and act like us and ask the same questions. In other words, they have to put themselves in a position of not knowing all the answers. And they don't like that position. Because what is that position? That is the position that Jesus described very eloquently when he said, if anyone wants to enter the kingdom of heaven, they have to become like a little child. In other words, they have to confess and admit that they don't have all the answers. In fact, they have to confess and admit that there is a universe of undiscovered curiosities still twinkling out there before our eyes that we don't even have a hope or a prayer of being able to capture on our own, you know, or to encapsulate, or to summarize, or to what's the word? Empirize, you know, to create empirical summaries of. We have to admit, and this is very interesting in the flat earth thing to me, we have to admit that We are very much more like bacteria in a petri dish. Even the great ones, right? Even the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffetts and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and whoever all those guys run around with, and we don't know their names. Even the quote-unquote great ones, and they're not great. They're just people. They're going to die. They're going to rot in their graves just like we do. And, the little bit of money that they had, even if it was trillions, even if it was incalculable because they're too dumb to know how to calculate it, and too small and too insignificant to even get their hands around their own foundations, their own holdings, even those guys, they want us, they want the entire world looking to them. That's why they lie to us. Because if they say we don't know, then we're going to be like, okay, thank you for your time. And we're going to be like going somewhere else looking for the answers, right? They don't want that. They can't have that. We have to be groveling at their feet, treating them like they know. And so they just make things up. And here's the interesting thing about making things up. If you want to make things up and have people come to you for the answers, then it's very simple. It's a very simple principle. All you have to do is make something up, and then have your friends ask you questions about it, and then master the answers to about 3 levels. If somebody asks you a question and it sounds they have questions about it, they're not really going to ask you more than 3 questions about it, 3 levels deep of questions. I mean, most people are not that inquisitive. Provided, of course, that your answers don't generate more questions. And the way that you do that is you come up with really solid answers, So your premise could be totally crazy and wacky, but if you collectively as an organization, which is what these secret societies are and what they sit around and do all day long, is they come up with explanations for things that are lies, but then they war game the challenges that are going to come their way, and they master the game, right? So if you have an expert come to your whatever school, club, church, whatever, and he's promoting this idea, and you ask him a question, chances are you're not going to be able to get him to go more than 1 level deep on that question, on that line of questioning, I should say. You say, well, what about this? Like, how is it exactly that cow flatulence melts ice at the North Pole? Well, and he starts rattling off a bunch of pseudoscientific, fake answers. Provided that he is pretentious, it's called a con game, not because con is an abbreviation of the word confidence, right? You're a confidence man. You're a con man. That's what a con man is, a confidence man. In other words, it's a man who pretends to be confident about something that he himself knows is a lie, right? So it's a con game. It's a confidence game. If the guy talking up there is confident and puts on a lot of pretension and makes half the room, intimidates at least half the room such that they're afraid to continue to ask him questions, which if you continue to ask questions, you're going to look like an obnoxious interrogator, harasser. All right. So the reality is that these guys that come up with these lies that they tell the entire world, if they go three levels deep in the game, then they've conquered 95% of the population, because 85% of the population isn't going to get past the first level, And here's the thing. A lot of people question, it's like, well, how do you lie to 1 million people? You don't have to lie to 1 million people. You don't have to, that's crazy. If your area of expertise is astrophysicist, all you have to do is lie to the astrophysicist and get them on your side. And out of 1 million people, there's only maybe 5,000 of them, right? And out of those 5,000, there's only 800 that are influential. And out of those 800, there's 100 that influence the 800 disproportionate to the other 700, disproportionately to the other 700. So you start breaking it down, you're talking about a very small group of people that you have to con, right? And if you can figure out a way to bribe or blackmail or threaten them to join your game, well, then you don't even have to con them. Now you have people helping you. And now you have a hive mind. You have more than just yourself. You have more than just one mind wargaming the situation. You have several minds, or maybe 50 minds, or 100 minds. You know, and then once you get those 100, they influence the other 700 out of the 800. And the 4,200 out of the 5,000, that they follow the 800, right? And then the million in the population follow the 5,000. Okay? So that's how the con works. That's how cons of massive scale work. It's not really complicated. You just have to think like a psychopath. And once you start thinking like a psychopath, things are pretty easy, because nobody else thinks like a psychopath. You know, if you're not a psychopath, you don't think like nobody gets it. You know, these Luciferians, the Albert Pikes, and the Freemasons, and all the secret society members, and whoever, you know, they think that's why they think Lucifer is a light bearer. They think that Lucifer is a light bearer because they think he's super intelligent, because he's a psychopath, and they think they misinterpret being a psychopath with being super intelligent. They think because their ways and their philosophies and their ethics and their morals are different than everybody else's, they ascribe that to intelligence, when it's not intelligence, it's sickness. Right? It's sickness. Nobody else gets it. The reason they don't get it is not because they're dumb, it's because they're not sick. Right? And so a con man thinks he's intelligent, but in fact, in reality, he's just sick. He's a liar. Right? He's a cheat. He's a scammer. And it's true, he may be intelligent, and if he's intelligent, that helps him to be a more successful liar, scammer, and cheat. But his lying, his scamming, and his cheating is not about being intelligent. It's about a warped and distorted way of thinking and living and acting. Right? So when they talk about heliocentrism, the moon is spinning around the earth is spinning around the sun is spinning around the Milky Way, everything's spinning. Oh my gosh, you know, and it's all predictable, but there's all these little blips in their calculations. Oh, well, we found out every 87,632 years there's a variation in the orbit of the earth around the Milky Way, and it's, you know, whatever. So there's an inlet when the entire universe is your subject matter. There's a literal universe of variables that you can pull in, right, to create another level of the con. So you go from 3 levels to 4 levels, you know, and then somebody comes up with a question that they can't answer at the 4th level, so they go running around. They get the hive mind buzzing to come up with another variable from some remote corner of the universe, or for some remote book in some remote library in some remote university in some remote country. And they herald it like it's something that nobody ever thought of, and it's like some guy from 2,300 years ago. Like, for example, Plato was talking about people using up the resources of the earth, like, you know, whenever Plato lived, 4,000 years ago, or 2,500 years ago, or whatever it was. There's nothing new. Everything's just a regurgitation. All of these lies are just a regurgitation of things that people have been talking about and trying to con people with for centuries, for ages and eons. So the reality of the situation, I believe, is that the actual universe, the actual earth, is a petri dish. It's a flat, like a petri dish is flat. It's got raised edges, just like a petri dish. The raised edges are an ice wall that encircles the flat earth. It's about 300 miles across the ice wall. In other words, it's 300 miles of ice. If you go to the edge of the ice, you hit a impassable, impenetrable dome that's made out of some kind of crystalline, semi-transparent substance. Okay, and the whole thing is supported by electromagnetic forces. Okay, electromagnetic forces are attractive and repelling. So an electromagnetic field can be used to repel something, it can be used to suspend something, or it can be used to attract something. We are attracted to the electromagnetic force of the Earth. The dome is held up by the electromagnetic force of the Earth. And to the best of my knowledge, nothing is repelled except for the fact that you have accounts of angels coming and going, and they float down and they fly away. So there is some manipulation of the fields of the Earth that these beings, these entities, use. Hindu yogis and certain other types of people have supposedly learned to tune themselves into these forces and to, at very unsophisticated and low levels, learned to harness the power that these forces have for what amounts to really nothing more than parlor tricks. But there are also people, there's a famous Russian guy who was studying the wings of insects and claims to have learned that insects don't fly, they suspend, and they manipulate the electromagnetic forces of the Earth in order to navigate themselves across the face of the Earth, and to suspend themselves and to do all kinds of crazy things that insects do. Has nothing to do with aerodynamics, has everything to do with the manipulation of electromagnetic fields. And these insects have these cones, and there's something about cones and electromagnetic fields I don't fully understand. But the point being is that he learned that this stuff, he played with insect wings on his desk, and he learned all, and he ended up supposedly building a box. Looks crude anyway. Some type of box. He stands on it. It's full of insect wings, and he flies. And he flies at unbelievable speeds, 1,000 miles an hour. The thing about these electromagnetic fields, when you're moving, and they form some kind of a shield around you that protects you from the normal laws of physics. So you can stop very fast, but you're not affected by momentum. You know, you can turn very fast and you're not affected by centrifugal or centripetal forces. So I got to go because my fiance is calling me. But the same thing is true of all the UFOs. All the UFOs are not from outer space; they are from inner space. They are from either above the surface of the Earth or beneath the surface of the Earth, because the Nazis built vast manufacturing facilities in tunnels. The Antarctic, everything is underground. All of the facilities in the Antarctic are underground. Vast facilities of manufacturing these flying discs. These flying discs use the electromagnetic field of the Earth to suspend and to propel and to navigate themselves. So the magnetic force of the Earth is from an iron mountain. Okay, an iron mountain in the North Pole. That's why compasses always point north. And that there's a vast, like Tesla discovered, there's a vast network of underground streams of energy and electricity going throughout the Earth. So the Earth is in effect a plasma disk, which is what you get. You can do this in a laboratory. You always get a plasma disk when you put two electromagnetic fields together with, if I'm not mistaken, their polarity pointing in opposite directions. So there's actually a really amazing YouTube series. It's called Primer Fields. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 6 hours long. Amazing. It has nothing to do with flat Earth, but it's all about electromagnetic fields, plasma disks, and the organizational power of electromagnetic fields, which explains all of the patterns that we see in nature, the hexagonal shapes in the plants, and the Fibonacci sequence that we see in like just ubiquitously all across the natural world. So now, so if that's true, if we're living in like a terrarium, or the earth is above, beneath is hell, okay, and outside the dome is heaven. What does that mean in terms of conspiracy, in terms of all this institutional deception, deceit, treachery, abuse, corruption? What it means, again, is that when people ask, what's the world really like, these people jump in front of you with their pretentious, hyper-confident, dogmatic, megalomaniacal answers of fake confidence, a con game, right? So that we look at them and we pay homage to them instead of looking for the entity or the principle or the transcendent network of truths that we actually owe homage to. In reality, not these people, but whoever made this thing, or whatever system of laws and principles is responsible for its creation, this thing we call Earth. And remember, we're like bacteria in a petri dish, a flat dish with upturned edges. The Bible actually says in the book of Job that if you go up and stand on top of the dome, which is semi-transparent, and it's somehow or another there's water up there. There's the revelation, I think it's John, talked about a crystal sea. Anyway, and you look down from there, that we're actually like grasshoppers. So there's some contention or contradiction between me saying that we're like bacteria and the Bible saying that we're like grasshoppers. Point being, we're either insects or bacteria. Point being is that our existence matters only if God imputes significance to our existence. We cannot impute significance to ourselves. We can't earn, like the Luciferians and the New Agers, and everybody says, I'm going to become God. No. You can't earn significance. The Bible says that the lives of men rise and fall like blades of grass. We don't matter. We're either pieces of grass, grasshoppers, or bacteria in the eyes of God, except for the fact that He goes out of His way to impute significance to us and meaning to our lives. And so He is the one that we actually owe homage to. And not all these clowns in clown world, which is the politicians, the Pope, the business leaders like the Gates and the Buffetts and the Zuckerbergs and the presidents and the Chinese and and all this stuff. That's clown world. Those are clowns. The actual entity that we owe homage and honor to is the Lord of heaven and earth, the creator of heaven and earth. But there is no way for me there's no way for me to summarize the universe, because it's too vast for a piece of bacteria to wrap its flagella. No, that's amoebas. Amoebas have flagellas. There's no way for a bacteria to wrap its head around, because a bacteria's brain is very small, right? But nevertheless, the thing I would like to try to bring to your attention and to clarity for you is that whether you're talking about heliocentrism, with the moon spinning around the earth spinning around the sun spinning around the Milky Way spinning around everything, it's like crazy land. That's why everything is so insane with the heliocentric world. It's just insanity, right? Nothing makes sense because it's all a big jumbled mess of spinning things and nobody knows where anything is, and nothing is, there's no fixed point of reference. It's all relative and yada, yada, yada. So I have got 6 messages so far. I think she might be getting mad at me. So what was I going to say? So